Program Director that is proud to serve here at the Southern Christian Leadership Foundation. And we are ecstatic and proud and all those other accolades that you are here celebrating with us today. Before we get started, just wanted to bring greetings on behalf of our president, Ms. Bernice Frazier, who is unable to be here at this moment, but she is on her way. Unfortunately, they had to take care of a loved one that passed this week, and so she will be here very shortly before she serves another role as president of Beta Xi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. We do have some special guests in the audience that I would like to recognize, and they're special because they work and serve amongst us here in this community. So I'd like to give them an opportunity to bring greetings to you and just kind of let you know what capacity they serve, especially for the topic that we're talking about today, and that's developing dementia-friendly faith villages. So our gracious host today and moderator is professor at Tuskegee University. This is Dr. Lonnie Hannon, and the next voice that you will hear will be that of Dr. Hannon, and he will take us through the rest of the afternoon. But just before that, I have two people, and hopefully she won't get on to me afterwards because I did not ask her permission to do this in the beginning. But I did ask Dr. Tyner if she would bring greetings. I also would like to ask Ms. Hurd if she would bring greetings because we just left October, and of course October was Breast Cancer and Cancer Awareness Month, so she did a lot of great work in the month of October to spread the message, spread the word, and give you updates on cancer research and different things that are available. So I want to give her the first opportunity, and then give Dr. Tyner, and then Dr. Hannon will proceed from there. Okay? Is everybody okay? Yes. Are you happy to be here? Yes. I'm happy to see you, so give yourselves a round of applause.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. Again, as Dr. Rock mentioned earlier, my name is Dr. Hannon, Dr. Lonnie Hannon, and I am the director for the Tuskegee University RCMI. And as the community engagement lead of the RCMI, my goal is always to empower communities or create mechanisms that lead to empowerment. And today, what everyone here is engaged in is that mechanism of empowerment. The series of town halls that we have been producing over the last couple of years is meant to bring people in the community together and be able to put in front of everyone someone who has dedicated their career to community empowerment. And that's what we're going to do today. But first, what I want to do is bring up like two keystones of our community. First, I want to bring up Ms. Hurd, who represents Macon County Means, and then I want to bring up Dr. Tyner. All right, so thank you very much. Ms. Hurd.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I really wasn't prepared for this, but anyway, I am one of the co-founders and administrative officer of the Macon Means organization. And Macon Means is an organization, well, first of all, our name stands for mentorship, education, advocacy, nutrition, and support services. That's what the Macon, M-E-A-N-S stands for. And what we try to do is very similar to what Dr. Lonnie is trying to do, is empower our community. And we try to empower the community through those things: mentorship, education, advocacy, nutrition, and support services. Just one thing, if you will allow me to we have one project that we're working on right now, and maybe you guys can help us with it. You know, here in Macon County, it has been said of us that we are senior food insecure. That means that our seniors in Macon County are not getting enough nutritious food. Now, also we have a lot of food deserts in Macon County. So I wonder about that, our organization, because we have so many different food giveaways in the community, you know, every week. And so I kind of aligned myself with one of them just to see what was the process and how things were going on. And I noticed that The food giveaways do happen. I mean, I just did one yesterday at my church, and we do at least 2 a week. But for some reason, that food is not getting to the people who really need it. So what we found out was that what was happening was the people who are giving away the food, they get the food and they want to give it away. But what happens is they have to give it away right then and there most of the time. And they don't have time to actually communicate to everybody that needs the food that we're having a food giveaway on a certain day at a certain time at a certain place. So a lot of the people who are in the community, out in the outskirts, outreach community, they're not able to get this information in time enough to actually make plans to get to the food giveaway. So we found that was one of the problems that was having. So what we're trying to do is bring all of these people in the community who do food distributions, we're trying to bring them to the table. And we want to sit down and have a conversation about how we can schedule this, how can we get some type of plan in place so that the people who really need the food can get the food. We want to do a directory of the food distributors here in Macon County. So if you know anybody who is distributing food, we have an announcement in the paper. It'll be on the radio. I have an announcement today. But please let them know we're having a meeting on November the 18th, I believe, the last Monday in the third Monday in November. And if you could get those people to come to the table so we can try, we don't do something for the problems in our community ourselves. Who's going to come in here and do something to help us? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower our community. So thank you for that opportunity.
No, thank you so much. All right. So now I want to bring up Dr. Tyner, and she is going to tell us all about the wonderful things that she's doing to help empower our community.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Greetings. We'd like to just say thank you to Mr. Rock and Miss Bernice for the service they provide. So give them a hand. We just thank them. I am the director of the Tuskegee Senior Citizens Program. I've been in senior service for over 40 years, been with the Tuskegee Senior Citizens for 5. And my job is to be sure that our seniors are taken care of. We provide an array of service, transportation, we have special programs, we have special things that we do to take care of the seniors. Many of our seniors are caretakers. So for that reason, we have organized a caretakers support group. We also have a grief support group, and they both meet on Thursday. One is on the second Thursday, and the other is the fourth. And what we like to do is just be that voice for seniors. There are so many things that they are not aware of, and we want to engage them. Want them to know that they need to continue to use their limbs, use their minds, be creative. And we don't want you to put that down because that keeps you going. So we want you to stay active as we do partnerships with other senior programs. We do have a senior center, and it is at the Sojourner Community Complex. We meet Monday through Friday from 10 o'clock until 1. And our sponsor is South Central Alabama Development in the city of Tuskegee. So what we like to do is that all the senior centers, we may have 6, and we like to do a partnership and do things together to share what we're doing and to learn what others are doing. So we do all that because of the love that we have for seniors. And I have 2 daughters, and I say to them, my best friend is 90, or my best friend is 89. And I feel that this is a mission and a calling since childhood. My thing was to be in the midst of seniors, my elderly relatives, grandparents, just trying to see what I can do. And I just thank God for that, because I am so happy when I am in the midst. So whenever you do things, you will look up and see me. If I'm not there, it's that I didn't know or either had a previous engagement. So we thank you for what you're doing today. In fact, we will be doing other things. And dementia, all of that is very important. Learn what you can learn. Don't diagnose yourselves. We can do that. But please don't do that. We all forget, but that's a part of life. And we thank you once again for this great day that we will be here to learn and gain information. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I want to say thank you to Dr. Tyner, and I appreciate everything that you're doing in the community. I can see the dedication and the passion. I can see the dedication and the passion in your heart, and it exudes out into the audience. And so once again, I want to thank you for that. At this time, I want to acknowledge just some other people in the audience that have had a big impact on my life. First, there is Mr. Frazier, who's in the audience now, who, that's right, who has exhibited throughout his life what I try to teach my students: so Black power, Black pride, empowerment, social justice. All of those facets he exhibits in his day-to-day actions. So I want to thank him for that. Also, Dr. Brother Uncle Jemay, who is not only a prominent fixture at Tuskegee University, but he is also someone who has provided mentorship for me and someone who has always taken me under his wing as his de facto nephew. And the trips that we would take from Birmingham to Tuskegee were always filled with wisdom that he was providing. And so I want to thank him for that. I also want to acknowledge the beautiful woman here in the red, and everything that I've learned in life, and so many of the wonderful lessons in life that I have learned about community, about engagement, about empowerment, those came from her. And so I want to say thank you, Ma, and I really appreciate you. I can't brag about you enough. All right, so at this time, I am going to bring up the president and executive director of the foundation. She is someone else who has taken me under her wing and taught me a lot about leadership, about walking in your authority, about giving back to the community, and doing it all with grace and strength and all of the things above that is important to pass down to future generations. And so at this time, I want to bring up Miss Bernice Frazier.
Thank you, Dr. Hannon. I'm trying to catch my breath and talking at the same time. And I apologize for being a little late, but I was at a very important homegoing for one of my dear friends. And the coincidental thing is that in her life, she was a doctor of anesthesiology. But in her later years, she developed dementia. The important thing that I want us to remember today, that even though she had that, she still lived a very active and involved life. She was a part of my sorority, and she was active until she lost her life, and she died peacefully in her sleep. So that's why this is so important, so that we can understand that if we form that village, and I'm not going to take what the doctor's getting ready to bring up and say to you, but this is the first step, so I'm very pleased to see each and every one of you here today. Dr. Tyner. I'm going to turn it back over, but I just want to say welcome. You're always welcome here. And when we are not having a town hall, we still have a lot of information and programs that we do. So just stop by our door anytime to ask questions or to pick up information. Okay, thank you. Oh, and I also like to thank Make It Means. Is Make It Means? Okay. I like to thank Make It Means. They're one of our partners, and we work very closely. We just did an event a couple of weeks ago. So, and I don't know, I don't want to charge it to my head now. I don't know if anyone else is in here other than Dr. Tyner, who works well with us. But welcome.
We are going to get started with our program. I got one more acknowledgement that I want to make, and that is to all of my beautiful students in here. Let me hear it. Let me hear it. All my beautiful students. All right, thank you for coming out. All right. So today I want to bring up someone that I've been looking at and following for years now with the work that she's been doing. And she is having a national impact with the different science that she is creating, the knowledge that she is distributing, and with the people that she is serving. Like every time I see her on social media or on the internet, she's always serving. Right? It says something about her. And I said, way back last year, I said, I'm going to do my best to bring her to Tuskegee so that she can give some of her magic back to the community. Okay? Something that she does on a regular, daily. And I cannot say enough about how proud I am that she did say that she would come today and speak with us. And I cannot say enough about the good that she is doing across our country, right? Starting in Atlanta at Emory University, to Portland, Oregon, to Los Angeles. But never did she not make time for good old Tuskegee, for Mother Tuskegee. And so that's something that says a lot about who she is in terms of her character, in terms of the type of person she is, okay? So I am going to, at this time, ask that Dr. Faron Epps comes to the front. You all give a big hand for Dr. Epps. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming out. All right, and so what we're going to do, I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself and talk a little bit about her work. And we want to leave some time for the audience to participate and ask questions as well. Okay? So, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Forgot to mention class of 2000.
Class of 2000, Tuskegee University. She is representing, indeed. And I have, and it's nursing?
Yes.
Right, I have some of my, all right. I always have a special place in my heart for nurses. Because my mom is a nurse. My mother-in-law is a nurse. And some of my best students are nursing students, occupational therapy students. All right, so I'm going to... So Dr. Epps, so can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your most significant research findings?
Okay. So again, thank you all for having me. Okay. Thank you all for having me. It's always a pleasure to come back to Mother Tuskegee. I get so excited. So Lonnie, all you had to do was just say Tusk, and I was here. And so it's very honored to come back and speak with you all and share, because I felt like I was raised right here. I actually stayed right around the corner. And so Tuskegee really means a lot to me. And currently I am an assistant professor of nursing at Emory University. And my program of research is promoting quality of life for African American families that are affected by dementia. And I do this work through faith-based activities. So I tell everyone, if you hear my name in the same sentence, it should have something to do with faith-based as well. So the information that you all have is a little bit information about the work that I'm doing with the churches, and then also a newsletter that I put out, and we'll probably be speaking about that as we go on. But again, my main goal, and I feel like I'm on assignment, you know, I speak with my bishop all the time, but it is to show how important religion, faith traditions are to families that are affected by dementia, and really to show scientists like myself how important it is, and also practitioners, for us to acknowledge what the faith tradition is in religion and how that can be paired with medicine to help these families that are affected with dementia.
One of the things I do want to ask is, can you explain to the audience the concept of Faith Village?
Yes. So Faith Village Connections is a nurse-led group. So basically, I had got discharged from my bishop. He called me in church and called me to his office, and I was like, oh my goodness, he sees all the sins. He's gonna get on me. And so I went in there, covered all up, and really what he wanted to know was what my job was in church. And I told him my job is sitting right down that back row and paying my tithes and offerings. And he was like, no, what can you do for the church? It is time for you to work in the church. And I said, well, I don't do anything. I don't do kids, even though I got kids. I don't do kids, I don't do the choir, I don't do the usher. I just named a whole list of things. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, well, you know what? I care for older adults, and especially those affected with dementia. And he said, dementia? Well, tell me about that. And he had no clue what dementia and Alzheimer's disease was. And he said, Bayron, come up with a program and we're gonna do it. And we'll support you. And so I had a community advisory board in Atlanta, and I brought this back to them. And some of my research findings had showed how strong religion was for African Americans, and how they did want to go to church for that support. And pastors just didn't know what was going on, what Alzheimer's and dementia was. So me and a group of ladies said, you know what, we're going to get together and we're going to start educating the churches. We didn't worry about money. We didn't worry about support or resources. We just met every week at Starbucks after our jobs, and then we sat there and we came up with a plan and how we're going to do it. And the initial part of our plan was just straight education. And then we just found some churches that were willing to allow us to come in and to educate. And that's how we started. And then I tied in research, because everything I do, I always say I have to bring in my research some type of way, because I want to make sure we introduce research to the church, and also, like I said, having scientists understand the importance of church in the Black church. And so I tied in my research and I started writing proposals and grants and got money to keep funding it. But the thing is, I tell people, we started without funding. You know, we just went in and we did what we had to do. We was working every Saturday, going out to the churches where they needed us. And then the money came.
Wow, that is awesome. So this is a ministry for you.
Yes, this is my ministry, and I think I just love where I'm at in life right now, because my personal and professional life actually aligns. And every day, you know, like I said, I started off and I said that I feel like I'm on assignment. So this is my ministry, and how great it is to be working and have Emory University. I actually was at Georgia State, and they recruited me to come to them in August, and to have them acknowledge my work and how important it is, and for them to support me. Yes. And you know, I told them, I said, y'all hire me, and y'all know I don't come to the office. Y'all can give me an office, but my work is in the community. And that's what I told the associate dean. I said, I just want to make sure you know that I won't be there every day, because my work is in the community. And we had to make sure we had that understanding. And so she really needed to know what I do and make sure she understood that. And she was fine with that.
Right, that's awesome. So my ministry is teaching and community empowerment. And in doing that, there are always bumps in the road. There's always barriers. So what are some of the toughest barriers that you have experienced in spreading your message to the community?
So there's several barriers, and I guess it's like two-tiered. So I'll talk with the church leadership. So there is barriers with that because a lot of senior pastors are unaware what dementia is, and I just want to make sure we all clear that dementia is a big umbrella term, and there's over 70 types of dementia that's affecting our community. And for African Americans, blacks, we get affected with vascular dementia. So that's a lot, and when I go in there, they're like, what? Huh? You know, they're very clueless, and they're not realizing that they have members that sit in the pews that are being affected by this. Either they have dementia, a form of dementia, or they're caring for somebody. And so, you know, if they are unaware, then they put up the brick wall. You know, because they, okay, well, what you need from me, you know? And I'm like, we need to provide this education, but if it's nothing that they're seeing, then it's not important to them. So that's one of the barriers, and it's not on their agenda. And they put me through, but just recently they want me to go through so many layers and want me to rent space for them, and I'm just like, but I'm trying to help you help your congregants. So, you know, I do have to go through that, but what I realized, persistence is really key. And so just because they say no, they have the secretary not return my call, that is fine. I will come back to them. And then I also learned working with churches is, I hate to say this, but it's like a competition. So once you get one church that's rolling and doing what they're doing, and it's getting, it's being highlighted, and we're all on social media. They're receiving funding because I give stipends to some of the churches that I'm working with so they can put some changes in place. And so right now, my phone is off the hook in my email. And then the other barrier is actually with the families. And so it was mentioned a little bit in here, but shame. A lot of families are ashamed of what may be going on with their loved one. Especially I'm learning, I'm originally from New Orleans, but in the Atlanta area, the black community is very prideful. And they don't want no one to see their mother or father not dressed to the T, or not what they're known for, especially if they were a powerful figure. And so I'm running across that, and you know, they're like, no, we just don't want no one to know. No one. And then there's this stigma that's just associated with it. You know, another reason why, you know, people might not come to the events because they might think, oh, well, they might think I'm a caregiver, I might have it. And I'm trying to counter that with the education because I believe knowledge is key. And the more we know about it, we'll know that it's nothing contagious. And it's not that person, or it's not that family member. This is something that is going on. This is the disease process. And we just have to love and be inclusive. And so when I'm working with the churches, y'all, the whole part of the church is not just me giving the education. I ask them to become a dementia-friendly faith village. Because it takes a village. And not just to care to raise a child. It takes a village, period. And I try to share with them that I want us, the church, to be inclusive, to make sure that we are that cornerstone, and we are really living up to that, the cornerstone of the black community, and that we can be that safe place for them to go for all things, especially dementia. So I want to make sure that they provide spiritual resources, pastoral resources, and also just resources for those families. And so I work with the churches, and we give the education, but we also do a walkthrough through the church because we want to make sure that the environment is inviting. And someone with dementia, y'all might not even think, but if this carpet was black on this right here, to a person with dementia, what y'all think this carpet looks like? A hole. And so you're wondering why mama doesn't want to come over the threshold or come into the church because I got a black carpet right here. Y'all, you crazy. Because there's a hole right there. You know, so just kind of share y'all. And then a lot of churches are creating, they're doing fancy stuff and they're getting a carpet with zigzag lines and stuff. But for a person with dementia, that can look like snakes. It can look like hands coming up trying to grab their leg and you're wondering why they might be jumping. So those are the things we kind of share with the church. We also pay attention to lighting, noise, because there's certain dementias that person is very sensitive to noise. So the churches need to have a quiet room. Plants are really good. Intergenerational activities are really a plus. So these are the kind of things that we work. So it's beyond us just giving education. For the churches that are committed and they want to go through this journey with us, we look at everything, and they have to agree to like 13 activities that they will be putting in place. Maybe a respite, a caregiver support group, and we help them with this over the year, and then we follow up with them. And in the recent grant we received this summer, I'm able to give them $1,000 so it can support some of those activities. And I don't care what they do with the $1,000. Once you agree, you say you're going to do these things, so you can pay a facilitator, you can set up a program. It doesn't matter. And so those are the things that we're doing, and we'll be doing that in Atlanta and then throughout Georgia, especially in the rural areas, because there's such a lack of resources.
Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, that is phenomenal. And that is endemic of the terrific work that you're doing in our communities. And just hearing you talk helps me understand some of the nuances that I never knew. And so that helps me in my walk, and if that time ever comes for me, to be more prepared. So again, I really appreciate that. So the Black church has always been the cornerstone in the Black community. So we have not always been able to turn to Washington, D.C., or to be able to turn to the media or some of these other institutions. But the institution that we have always had as African Americans, as Black folks, is the Black church.
Yes.
Every movement that we have been a part of since slavery has come out of the Black church.
Yes.
Okay? Malcolm X, remember, he was a minister. All right? Then there was Martin Luther King, and we can go on and on and on. So what I see from you, Dr. Epps, is you taking that level, that you're taking that baton that has been passed on by people in the past, and you're leading what a lot of people consider as the next movement that's coming out of the Black church. So
Put it like that. Whoa.
Well, that movement is to help eliminate health disparities.
Yes.
Right? And so what do you, when we think about that, when we think about healthy lifestyle choices, health disparities, removing, part of what you're saying is removing the discrimination associated with health, stigmas, thank you. So how do you see that playing out in the future? Just the movement to remove stigmas and health disparities and discrimination that's associated with health.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because, you know, like we said, the church is the cornerstone. I want to make sure we give them the resources. And I really believe, and when we have our education, it starts off with one thing, but we talk about a lot of things, and we talk about how the Black community has been oppressed. And we go through those things because a lot of those things have an impact and are risk factors for dementia. And we have these conversations and we talk about, well, how can we prevent or reduce the risk of these certain things? And so everything that we do, it is to reduce the health disparities and improve health outcomes for the Black community. I wanted to share this. We've been getting a lot of slack on social media because people come to me and I think y'all would appreciate this, but they're like, well, everybody has dementia, not just Black folks. And I understand that, but my purpose here is to help my community.
All right.
And that's what I make sure that I'm very clear about. But you know, that is when we talk about barriers, that might be maybe a larger barrier that I face because people are like, oh, you're just focused on this group. And I say yes, and I stand really firm on that, and based on the fact that, you know, the Black church is the cornerstone, and I want to make sure that they have the resources, because when someone comes there next to that pastor, he knows to pick up the phone and call me. And that's what happens. Like on my ride here, I was talking. So that is my whole goal in my work.
Well, thank you so much. So, are there any questions from the audience? Yes, Ms. Frazier.
Yes, Ms. Frazier.
I have a question. Hear all the things you're doing in Georgia. How can we partner with you if we were to have some churches here in Tuskegee that would like to implement that program?
Yeah. So I would say let's talk. And I'm very open to that. Like Dr. Hannon had mentioned, I've been to other states talking about my stuff. I've been to Chicago. And it's just me working with a group of people who can carry on this work. You know, I'm not protecting it. It's not just for me. It's for me to share and be able to help others. So, Ms. Frazier, I can follow up, or if you know any churches, I'm willing to really have a great conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Frazier. Yes, I have, so, Ms. Hurd, yes.
Well, Dr. Epps, I want to applaud you on what you're doing, because I have personally experienced that in my church with my family. One of my questions is, specifically, tell us about the research that you're doing.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
So you're right. I did a lot of the community work and education. So the two main research projects that I have is one is where I've worked with a couple of churches to modify your worship service that we designed, and we follow families over 6 months attending these worship services to see how it impacts them and the caregiver or the care partner. And so that's one of my programs of research, and that was funded by the Alzheimer's Association, a national organization, just to share with how they are just really behind me in that effort. And so I follow the families, and what I'm seeing, what's so important about this is that anything you read, they say, oh, if they're going to do church or go to church, it needs to be a short service, it needs to be 10, 15 minutes, it needs to be like this. So y'all, when I was designing this worship service, and I brought this to the pastors, and I said 10, 15 minutes, they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, okay, well, how about an hour? And I said, well, how about an hour? We went back and forth, back and forth. And so when I came back to them, because we had to pilot the worship services, they said, you know, Fabian, give us 75 minutes at least. And so now when I have the families coming to the church service, worship service, can y'all guess how long those services?
15 minutes. 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
So I called the bishop immediately after, and I'm like, wait, yo, we talked about this because we pick a one Sunday a month, and we don't call it dementia friendly service, but we know if any family calls to church, and these are the families that I have recruited in my research, they will come on this Sunday. And he told me, Fabian, this is an evolving process. And we're learning as we go, okay? You write that in your paper. So that's one of the projects. And then the other project that I'm just starting is, while I was out there, a lot of people told me, we can't make it to church. We want to be part of this. Why don't you meet us where we are? And I said, okay. And, you know, because church is still important. They want to get spiritually fed. So I'm actually designing faith-based home activities for families to do in the home with each other. And the main thing is, it's not just, I tell people, I'm not just talking about turning on the TV or putting on the gospel music. I'm talking about meaningful activities. And so we're just now in the beginning of that, where we're trying to design those activities. And I don't design them by myself. I have a project design team that is, have church leaders, current caregivers, former caregivers, and persons living with dementia that's on my project design team. So anything I go out before I do a program or before I test any product, I pass it through them. And they look at results and they tell me yay or nay. And then at the end, I also share results with them too as well. So thank you for asking that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Hey, I'm not sure if you already answered this question because I came in late, but I just wanted to know how you got started doing this.
Oh, no, I did not answer. That's a great question. So how did I get started doing research, or how did I get started with this topic, just overall?
The whole pizzazz.
Oh, okay, I like that pizzazz. So when I finished my PhD, I went to Southern University for my PhD in nursing. And when I was there, I just was in the motions, you know, because a friend said, "Hey, well, come on, let's go get this PhD." And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing nothing. I just had one child at the time. I said, oh, I could do this. And so 9 years later, I finished the PhD, and I still didn't know what to do. I looked at religion and cultural values for family caregivers because, you know, we were caring for my grandmother, both of my grandmothers. And so I looked at that, but I didn't know the purpose. I didn't get it. And so I just kept on teaching. I've been teaching since 2004. And then I met someone, and she was doing older adults, and I love older adults. I've been doing this since high school. I started off as a certified nursing assistant. And I told her what I was doing, and she said, "I think you need to apply for a postdoc." And that's it's additional education after you get your doctorate. And I was like, what? Okay. And I said, will my salary change? That's all I needed to know. Will my salary change, and do I have to pay for it? And the answer was no to both of those things. And so I said, well, you know what? Why not? And I didn't have to move at all. And so I was looking at family caregiving originally, just a big, broad term. And she said, that's too broad. You need to get in the literature. And so I went back to the literature, and I started reading, what about family caregiving? And I ran across Alzheimer's and dementia, something I didn't know anything about. And here's this someone with a PhD in nursing that only knew, oh, I took care of an Alzheimer's patient or someone who had dementia, but I really didn't know anything about it. And so I ran across that dementia is twice more likely to affect the African American community. I was like, what? We don't get this, right? And I was just like, nah, this is not right. So I went to my mom and I said, Mama, you know what they're saying about Alzheimer's and dementia? And she was like, nah, that's for white folks. We don't do that. That's not what we get. And I went to my aunt, and everybody said no, but the literature was saying yeah. And I was like, wait, what's really going on here? And that's where I chose the topic that I'm just going to focus on Alzheimer's and dementia in the African American community. And I look at families. They told me, Fayron, you either got to look at the person with dementia or you have to look at their caregiver. I said, no, I can't do that, because it's not either or. And it's not just a dyad, it's the family. And so I'm very firm on that. And that's how I started, and that's how I'm stuck right here on dementia in the African American community. So did that answer your question? Yes. All right, thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. So let me give you a little context. That's Aaliyah, and she is one of my top statistics and intro students that I have. And she's a nursing major.
Oh, great.
So basically one thing led to another. And before you know it, like when you're walking a path, if you walk that path faithfully, you will be led to where you're supposed to be. Thank you. Are there any? So, yes, Dr. Tyner.
Yes. My question is, first of all, I love you for doing what you're doing. And I thank you for embracing your calling as ministry. Because it tends, when we see it as ministry, it means that you get it all, you got it. And the thing is, several days ago, someone called my office to discuss with me what their family member was going through. And it was vascular dementia. And that was something that I had to just really just kind of get into and just call her back and talk to her about that, because the physician didn't give her much information about it. So what I'd like for you to do is, first of all, just give a definition of dementia and then talk about vascular dementia. Thank you.
Yep, I sure can do that. Not today. How about just a little? I'm gonna do just 5 minutes. Give me 3 minutes. So, dementia, like I mentioned, is the big umbrella term, and dementia is impairment, and it's not just memory loss. It is memory loss, emotional impairment, and decision making. Those are the 3 things that fall under dementia. And vascular dementia is the number 2 or 3rd type of dementia, the most common, that impacts the African American community. And it is when you have a disruption in blood flow, which is a disruption in blood flow to your brain, you have that leads to vascular dementia. Why is it so prevalent in our community? Because we have cardiovascular disease. All right, so hypertension, stroke, diabetes, those are the main ones right there that are uncontrolled, that we're not taking care of, leads to that. The signs in your brain of dementia are occurring 20 years before we would even recognize it. So I'm 40, I'm 41. Who got that brace? So, but what I'm doing right now for my life is going to impact me 60 years down the line. So I just recently got diagnosed with hypertension, and that was so scary because I know the field, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, whoa, I got to get control of this. But imagine all my peers who are not, and they're like, oh, I feel good. I don't care if it's 180 over 100. That's causing damage over time. Yeah. And so they're not treating it. So when they get in their 60s and 70s, we're going to start seeing those signs of dementia. And so that's why it's really important for us to change our lifestyle. And we really harp on diabetes, making sure you take your medicine, eat right. Same thing with hypertension and the strokes. I had one pastor told me, oh, I just had many strokes. Well, many strokes is still damaging, right? So they call it a TIA or a mini stroke because within 24 to 48 hours, the functioning returns back. So you might have had some weakness on your right-hand side, but now it's okay. But right here is no return, okay? And then we also tell families, you're worried about Uncle Joe got swelling, not getting no circulation to them feet. You know, raise your feet up. We got some swelling and stuff like that. But y'all, when y'all see that, I want y'all to also think about no circulation getting to the brain. Okay. So I know I hope I hit a little bit and wait a little bit more. But again, vascular dementia is hitting our community, and it's, you know, in the Atlanta area, I really I did an assessment of Atlanta area, and I looked at the communities, and you know, we do try, but it's also working with partners because we have to change what's in our communities, right? So if I was in the church this past Saturday, and they didn't have not one grocery store. They just had what one store was like, something store. That was the name of it. But there was not one grocery store, not one eatery, and a good distance, walking distance. So we have to even change those things, you know, so I can't put the blame all on the person. It's also we partnering with community agencies and the government to make some changes as well.
Right, and that is very true. So what we experience in terms of health disparities, specifically dementia, there's an individual component, but there's also a structural component.
Yes.
And you speak of the food deserts that are prevalent in so many of our communities. And that's one of the things that a comprehensive research plan, a comprehensive activist plan, that's something else that we would address. All right, are there any other questions? Yes.
I just want to ask, do you think the stress that we have as a black community causes later dementia?
Yeah. So there is some recent literature about that, how stress not only with dementia, with a lot of chronic conditions. is a risk factor. And I know in Johns Hopkins they do a lot about that because, and that's why when one of my events we talked about the oppression that communities of color go through, and all of that impacts. And there's literature on it, and we just need to make sure we talk about it more. But no, you're right on that it is a risk factor.
Right. Thank you so much for that question. Any other questions in the audience? I know, yes, sir, Mr. Frazier.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yes.
You struck on a very powerful note when you talked about not apologizing for taking care of your people. And I would like the students in this room to understand that they're going to be faced with that. Everything that they set out to do for their people, they're going to be challenged and want to dilute it, and why you got to do this. And so I congratulate you on taking care of your people, solid loyalty, along with all the other stuff that you have to deal with in your life, professional life. And I hope that every young person in here can take from you the need to take care of their people first, and then everything and everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just in that same vein, so there are a lot of students here today. What is some advice that you would give to the young future researchers thinking about developing faith villages?
So it's just piggyback on that. It is, don't forget about your community. And you know, I know faith villages and anything with dementia might not be for everyone, but I tell those that are coming behind me, find what you're passionate about. You know, because I do this 24/7. And I really mean that, 24/7. My kids, she's in first grade, she's talking about research. Because I do this all the time, but it's not work. Because I enjoy it and I'm passionate about it. So when I'm working on Saturdays and even going to church services on Sundays with my research, it's okay. I don't complain because I'm passionate about it and I really want to make a difference in my community. And so that's what I'll tell everyone here that's coming behind me. Find what you're passionate about so you can make a difference in your community. And if you're not actually on the ground, you can be behind the office and still making a difference because you're making connections then. Because if it's the people are not in the office that don't help me, I wouldn't be nowhere, right? Because they know who to connect me to make sure that I can get things done. So it's really doing that, and know that I mentioned inclusive. I'm really big on just being open. Open as a person, and then when you're working with organizations that they're inclusive and they understand that everyone, we have to have love for everyone, and everyone needs to be at the table so we can care, because everyone is going to experience this. It's not, you know, it's not just, the dementia does not discriminate. It does not. And so we just all need to be at the table, and if you're working with the churches, I continue to work with them and ask y'all to continue to work with them, because we can have further dialogue so we can come up with an action plan. Because so Faith Village is just like the first step, right? I have no clue what God has in store for me, but I go with it, right? Because He can direct me. But I know this is just the first step, and you know, I'm hoping that those behind me can come and learn from me and say, okay, here with Dr. Epps, let's add this, let's do this, and I'm fine with that, right? Because I'm only one person, and I can only do certain things.
Right, I got it. Thank you so much. Speaking of your legacy, we have a lot of nursing students here today. Like, let me hear from all the nursing students.
All right, wow.
Come on, y'all.
This is great.
And so, you all stand up.
Please.
The nursing students. All right.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so amazing.
So, remain yourself. So all my occupational therapy students.
Woo! That is so great.
Right, that is awesome. Thank you, y'all.
Yeah.
And I do.
Right quick.
Oh, sure, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so for those in the healthcare profession, I just have to tell y'all, I had came back and spoke at Penning, but I just want y'all to value this education you're getting right here at Tuskegee. Because I'm telling you, when I got out for my first job, I had nurses that were crying in the bathroom because they couldn't handle the patient load. And I was looking at them like, this ain't nice. You don't know what I went through at Tuskegee. So, you know, but I want y'all to really value that. It might be hard right now, y'all might not understand, but when you get out there, they recognize you. You would get called for jobs because you are a Tuskegee grad. Because most of all the nurses I know graduate from Tuskegee. I mean, we wear it proud. So I just want to let y'all know, even with the occupational therapy, I mean, if we are really out there, we don't have that many, because in my class I think only 8 people graduated, so it's smaller numbers, but, and I'm not sure if it's still like that, but be proud and really value what you are going through and what you're learning here, because it's going to make a difference, and you're going to see it. And I was with nurses from these big universities, and they couldn't take it. They could not take it. And I was just like, what? So I just wanted to share.
All my nursing and occupational therapy students. Thank you. My social work student. And all of the students in psychology and sociology. All right.
Wow. This is an interdisciplinary team, so I didn't talk about that. But my team is interdisciplinary. It is not all nursing. So I have public health, social workers, like sociology. I mean, people like, my team is interdisciplinary because we all look at things from a different lens. And I recognize that what they can bring to the table, and they recognize what I can bring to the table as a nurse. So it's really important. I'm glad that they're all here because it is an interdisciplinary effort for us to really make a true impact.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I just want to add, Patricia or Dr. Hannon, I just want to add also to let the students know on the hospital side, when you come into the hospital, and we have had Tuskegee students come in and they stand out from the rest. Just the other day, one of the educators told me, she said, they're so mannerable and they're so smart. So when you go to clinical sites, I can tell you, they're deciding whether they want to hire you at that point in time or not, but the Tuskegee students are standing out. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Right. Thank you. And finally, I would like to thank all of the seniors here today. Like what they bring in terms of wisdom, in terms of knowledge, in terms of leadership cannot be replaced. And listen, all you young people here, and I count myself as a young person and Dr. Epps. So don't ever undervalue or underestimate what our seniors bring. And these are the people that have laid out the foundation and the path for us, and they should always be honored.
So what we want people to know is that just being forgetful does not mean that you have dementia, okay? Because we are all aging, all right? So just like your bones and your joints age and you're a little bit slower to get up, that's also happening up here, and that's normal, okay? The problem is if you have memory loss and you forget something and you never remember, all right? So we all misplace our keys. But we can go back to it maybe an hour, 2 hours, retrace our steps. Somebody who has dementia cannot retrace their steps, okay? So no matter what, how many times we give it, they will not retrace their steps. So that's a sign right there. They'll never find those glasses. They'll never find those keys and the money, okay? So that's number one. I'm trying to go off my head. I usually have a little bookmark, but I don't have that right. And then the second, one of the other signs is, of course, confusion of time, place, and person. So they do not recognize who you are, who they are. unaware of the time of the date and the year, so that's pretty classic. You know, we're aware of that. Poor judgment is another sign, and you might say, well, what you mean by poor judgment? They cannot really determine good person versus bad person. So this is when the scammers come in, right? Because they cannot really understand that I'm not supposed to be giving this person this money, you know. So remember I told y'all with dementia that the decision-making process is impaired? Yes. That's all part of that, all right? And so they start making poor decisions. They go out and buy, they're 80 years old and they go buy a Camaro. That's an example, and we've seen that. The scammers, y'all have to be very careful. If you notice that your mom has been on the phone a lot lately and is not talking to family members, because they coach the older adult. I had one family, they coached the father in the bathroom to talk on the phone, and had his checkbook in the bathroom with him. They are very, because they know the family is going to be watching. They write checks for $5 every week. For over 4 years, y'all know what that add up to? A lot of money. So that's what's going on. They have poor judgment. Oh, I might need to stay somewhere else. Let me see another one. Let me just give y'all examples. They forget, so something that's so familiar to them that they can do. So a lot of us can drive home without even thinking about it. Somebody with dementia cannot. Those familiar activities, us brushing our teeth, we don't think about the process. We just get up and brush our teeth. That person cannot follow the steps. They cannot make it home. And so what we've been seeing, especially in a church setting, that person has always been there at the church 15 minutes before it opened. Now they show up at 11 or they don't show up. But church members don't check on them. We think that's nothing, but that really is something. And I know y'all probably heard of people that, older adults, I know in Georgia we have the, I think it's the silver alert. I'm not sure what it is in Alabama. Same thing. So that's really the people that start driving in their car and they forget where they're going. And they just drive and drive and drive. And so as spouses and as children, we need to be mindful of that. So we know they was going to a June house. They not there in 30 minutes. We need to go out there and look. You know, that is a sign of not doing familiar. Holidays is coming up. They made sweet potato pie like this. All of a sudden, they're stuck in the middle of the recipe. They got the sweet potatoes peeled and it's in the bowl, but they don't know what to do next. All right? That should be a question. Well, what's going on? You know, because we're always able to whip this up. So just to give y'all examples, vision is another big one. They start having poor vision. So I usually tell people, put your binoculars on and you do this. Y'all gotta do this with me. Hello. Y'all, somebody with dementia, any form of dementia, when it's affecting this part of the brain, this is all they see. Right in front of them, right? Could you see me coming? No, you probably did. You know, so when you're coming from the side with that person, they can't see you. So what's your automatic they might do is hit you, or you might startle them. And then for those who, we haven't had that diagnosis of dementia yet, and we're like, something not right, the main thing is the car. Go look at the car. Because they'll have a lot of dents and bangs in the car because they cannot see. Remember, I'm driving and this is all I see, but I need to make a right turn. I don't see nothing over here. So a lot of the right side would be banged up. They get in a lot of accidents because then they just get over. And so they gonna call you and be fussing. Oh, they didn't know what they was doing, but it was them. So you want to be really mindful. We tell families when y'all go home for the holidays, please check the car and see if there's a lot of additional dents. You might want to just really pay attention to that. And you know, it could be really something did happen, but it could be them here because they cannot, again, they cannot see. So I just kind of want to share that. I don't know I don't have my list with me like I said, but I'm here to answer any questions. Yeah.
What about the paranoia? Is that one of the, because I noticed that a lot.
So there's a type of dementia called emotions. It's another sign when you had somebody that was sweet all their life, and all of a sudden they're cursing and swearing now, and you're like, where does this come from? What? Y'all, that is a sign, okay? Because each part of your brain is controlling something, all right? And especially right up here, this is where your emotions are stored. And if that part of the brain is tangled with plaques on Alzheimer's disease, or it's not getting the oxygen because of vascular dementia, things like that's what's happening right up here. And so they can go from sweet to being really, really mean. And then there's another dementia called frontotemporal lobar dementia. I don't know if anybody heard about that. But they did a lot of things. This is the dementia. We think dementia is for old folks. It is not. There's so many people younger than 50 that are starting to get dementia. And they get the FTLD dementia. And they have a lot of specials on that because it really impacts you. So if you're 40, 41, and you get diagnosed with this type of dementia, you're at the prime of your life. You got kids. You just got married, so it messes up the whole family. But the thing about this dementia is the emotions. They were so sweet, and all of a sudden they're very abusive now to their spouse. They're cursing, and if the spouse doesn't understand what's going on with the disease process, they get mad, and they get a divorce. You must be all in my because that happens, and they get a divorce. But if you understand it, then we can know how we can kind of help. But with that type of dementia, they very compulsive behavior. So these are some things I didn't talk about. So they eat. Like once they get stuck on something, they're own it as well. And so they can gain 20 pounds in 2 months. If they get fixated on something, well, with FTLD, they really don't lose it. The other dementias, they might lose weight. If they get fixated on something, especially food, they're very fixated on food. And if they want to eat, and y'all lock up and y'all put locks on everything in the cabinet and stuff like that, and they're able to still walk, because usually they're in their 40s and 50s, they're going to walk to the store and steal the food. And this is where we're trying to work with the police system so they can be aware, because they got so many people that are in jail who actually have FTLD.
Oh, wow.
And they're calling it, it's a psychotic diagnosis, or, and they stole because of that. All right, they're very sexually inappropriate. Somebody has FTLD, so they can go up to a woman and grab her breast. And that's why we tell families, you got to let people know what's going on. Don't be so ashamed of it. And that's why we go and educate. I'm telling y'all, so now y'all know if these things happen, and if an older adult come up to you, you might want to talk to the family and just see. Because, you get that, and then you're going to get a charge, right? And you go, and if nobody understands what the diagnosis is, then what? So that's one of the biggest things. And like I said, it's been on the news. 60 Minutes did a special on it, because FTLD is really impacting young adults. And it's just messing up everything.
How well did you enjoy your presentation? So, when you leave here, is it one thing that you did not know when you came in the door? How many people will agree with that?
Yes.
The one that I learned that I didn't know was that if you have a black carpet on the floor, they think it's a hole. And when you see zigzags, there may be a snake or hands pulling up at them. And so when you understand that, and then they react to that, you can better relate to them.
Yes.
So we're almost have some wonderful seasoned citizens here, and they came from St. Mark and different places. So that's one of the reasons why I asked that question, because St. Mark may be one of the churches that will be willing to start this program. Am I right, ladies? Yes, okay. So, as Dr. Hannon stated, we have some food in the back, and I do want to quickly recognize another partner that came in, and that's our partner in testing. Stand up. You know the name, left.
All right, so can we get a round of applause for Dr. Epps? Thank you so much. I mean, that That was highly empowering, it was informative, and it was just what we needed today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming out.